You're welcome.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us or watching later. We are at Mira Vista K8, where they are hosting us for the governance committee. We're gonna start with our opening procedures. We're gonna start with our land acknowledgement. We recognize that we are presently on the land of the Chochenyo, Muwekma, Karkin, Ohlone peoples and acknowledge them as the first inhabitants of the land we currently occupy. President Smith-Foltz, would you mind doing the labor and body acknowledgement?
Absolutely. I acknowledge that the burden of environmental exploitation and systemic injustice falls upon the labor of Black and brown bodies in the building of this country and its institutions. I remember that Black and brown people were born and died working this land against their will for generations. I also acknowledge the continued contribution of the labor of survivors over the centuries to today, of all immigrant labor, including voluntary, involuntary, trafficked, forced, and undocumented peoples in the building of what we refer to as the United States.
Thank you so much, President Smith-Foltz. Dr. Hurst, would you mind doing roll call?
Absolutely. President Smith-Foltz,
Good afternoon, everyone. Present.
Clerk Gonzalez Floyd,
Good afternoon, President.
Monica Diaz, not here. Christine Hatcher is not here. We also have my administrative assistants, Vincent Munoz is present, and Rosa Cornejo.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Hurst. Okay, first I wanted to do some introductions. As Dr. Hurst mentioned, the committee consists of President Smith-Foltz and myself, and of course, Dr. Hurst supporting the committee. We have also asked our labor partners, Teamsters, UTR, and WCA, to send us a representative who participate as advisory in this committee. Why? Because we wanted to have a principal, a teacher, and a classified member of our staff present to be able to advise us on policy that we are looking at. Anyone is welcome to join our meetings and provide feedback in anything that we're gonna be doing this year. We also have Rosa Cornejo and Genesis Munoz from the superintendent's office who are going to be supporting this committee and are here present at Mira Vista. Okay, we are going to now move to the purpose and outcomes of the committee. President Smith-Foltz, anything you'd like to share?
No, thank you. I'm very excited to be here. I'm looking forward to diving deep into policy.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So the purpose of this committee is going to be looking at policy, whether reviewing current policy and proposing changes to the full Board of Education, or looking at new policies that we need in the district, and then sending drafts to the full board for approval and discussion. We're going to be looking at a lot of policies this year. The committee is going to be meeting once a month for a couple hours, depending on the workload. And we will be announcing future dates at future times. So we're now going to move to public comment. The public will have an opportunity to make public comment throughout the conversation. The public will get 2 minutes per public comment before we get to our agenda items. Once we get to our agenda items, if we have any items under discussion or action, we will also allow public comment for 1 minute during that time. Ms. Munoz, do we have any public comment?
We have no public comment.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to be moving to our first discussion item, which is the draft of our anti-racist statement for the Board of Education. Just for context, this draft came from feedback from our retreat that we held Friday, where we met with our amazing consultant, Dr. Rochelle Rogers-Ard, who actually put this together from feedback from Dr. Hurst, and the trustees who were present, at the retreat. The idea is that this will be the statement for us to the community on what we stand for around race. And we're seeing the draft of that for the first time today. The idea is also that we are going to send this draft where we end up today to the full board at the next board meeting for approval. So why don't we start with, are there any public comment on this item?
We have no public comment.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move to the statement. Dr. Hurst, would you please do me a favor of reading the statement?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The West Contra Costa School District Board of Education is committed to the work of anti-racism, the conscious and active effort to identify, challenge, and correct racial inequities in the system and institutions within our schools and communities. Racism, explicit or implicit, stands in direct conflict to the fundamental principles of WCCUSD education. To carry WCCUSD education into the future, we recognize that we must continually renew and reflect on the roots of racism and develop new ideas to meet the times. Unjust ideas and policies and the racial inequity they produce have shaped us, our schools, and our society. We strive to uncover unconscious biases and practice anti-racism as individuals and as board members. We challenge ourselves to persist through the discomfort necessary for growth and learning, to deepen our listening and our examination of racism and oppression, and to develop a strong understanding of how our personal experiences and feelings fit into a larger picture of continual oppression. Each member of our school board, individually and collectively, is responsible for creating and nurturing an anti-racist learning environment where each student, staff member, and community partner is a respected and valued member of the WCCUSD community. We are uniquely positioned, and it is our responsibility to identify and dismantle racist ideas and inequitable policies in ourselves and across the district. Therefore, we commit to supporting anti-racist policies, programs, and practices for our children's education and well-being while building strong and inclusive school communities. We commit to holding each board member accountable toward these goals and moving the work of anti-racism forward.
Wow. Okay, well, why don't we start with our discussion? I think usually, I mean, this one we have seen before.
Mhm.
Yes.
Usually, most policies will come in with edits and recommendations from staff, in which case we and the advisory members can ask questions and then we can open for discussion. This case, I mean, we kind of already proposed how to write this, so I think that we can move straight to the discussion if it's okay with you, President Smith-Folds and
Okay.
Dr. Hurst.
Yes.
Okay, why don't we start with you, President Smith-Folds? What are your thoughts?
I appreciate the statement. I appreciate that the work that we did last Friday, you can see in the statement.
Mhm.
The discussion that we had last Friday and the questions that the interrogation we did last Friday to why do we need this? Why is this good? What's important about this? I think you can see it showed up in the statement. I think that the level of accountability is here. I think the responsibility of the board is in this statement. I think that we are owning the past while looking towards the future, but creating in the present. I think that that's very important in the work of anti-racism. I think that this statement also gives our superintendent and his staff somewhere to point back to. It's board policy. Board policy says, board statement says, board whatever. So we are able to hold every section of the district accountable, but not only accountable, but give them the tools that they need to shift the climate and the culture. So I think this is one of our first and very good protective policies that I know that this committee will put in place.
Mm.
I'm complete.
Thank you. Dr. Hurst, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I looked at this immediately when she sent it to us, and I know she shared with us that she was gonna leave it up to us to kind of wordsmith, but I think she did a really nice job
Me too.
of putting everything together, and I could see the components.
Mhm.
And I think for me, I was really kind of harping on not just talking about anti-racism, but defining it. And I can see that she did that in the second sentence there. And then there's key pieces that we all said, like persisting through discomfort and our responsibility as well, and defining also what the board's responsibility is as well. I think she did a nice job.
Yeah, thank you. I completely agree with what you both of you said. I mean, I think Dr. Rogers is amazing, but I wasn't expecting it to be
Exactly.
so perfect, right?
Right.
I mean, like, she really took all of our perspectives and really included pieces of it. I love the flow. I think that the only part that I would maybe recommend we change is the last paragraph. Or maybe not even change, but add the part about we commit to holding each board member accountable towards these goals and moving the work of anti-racism forward. I think that's really important. So I wonder if it's also adding another sentence saying, we also commit to holding district staff, students and community to these standards,
Yeah.
I love that.
right? Because I
Yes.
think that like it shows this like communal standard, right? Not just on the board. It's like when I read this, like I loved it, but I also thought like, okay, like this is our standard only. Where is our standard on everyone else? And I feel like it should be both,
Yeah.
right?
I agree.
So can you write that down so we can?
Yeah.
say that again?
I'm the worst at repeating what I say, but I think that we just add a last sentence saying we also commit to holding West Contra Costa staff, students, and community accountable to these standards or to living these standards of anti-racism. But let's wordsmith it. What
So
are
did you
your
say
thoughts?
Staff, students, and community?
Yeah,
WCC, Clerk Gonzalez Hoy said, we also commit to holding WCC USD staff, students, and community to living these standards of anti-racism.
Can I just probe just a little
Yes,
bit?
please.
So, when I think of community, like the greater community, how do you see us holding them accountable?
yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
Same with students, really, because like we can hold. I mean, really, we can only hold you accountable, which then you're supposed to then
And
hold everybody
yeah,
else on
exactly.
staff. So I think staff makes sense. Students, I think we can also hold accountable through staff, but maybe we
But
don't
if a
necessarily have
community-
to say
if a community
students.
member comes to a football game and they show out,
True,
you're out.
yeah,
That is not upholding our anti-racism
gotcha.
standards. If a community member comes up on our campus and does anything that's out of pocket, that goes against our standards, we can point back to say, this is not, you are part of our community, our school community, and you're not holding yourself to the standard that we require to move and shift ourselves to an anti-racist stance,
Yeah.
right? So, and I love the fact that you said community to living these standards, because that's action. It's action. You can do that over there, but you cannot do that here. And I think that we have to get to the point where I want everybody to eat, but you may not be sitting at my table because you don't have the manners to be here. And I think that that's setting a boundary. I think that we learned that last Friday. You get to set your standard and your boundaries. I don't get to take away your right to eat, but you don't get to come in my house. And I think that the board, this is our home. And we are setting a standard saying, this is the manner that we would like people to conduct themselves in our home. You have the right to eat, to talk, to behave, to do whatever, but it's within our boundaries of our standards.
Yeah.
So I love the idea of community too.
Okay. What are your thoughts?
So after hearing that, it really makes sense.
Okay.
I just needed that example.
I think I did too.
Yeah.
Because I think originally it was just like making like a grand statement, but then as soon as I was thinking like, yeah, how do we do that? And you're right. I think that there are specific examples that we can point out to of how we do that. Right.
And we've seen those examples lived in our district. We've seen people yell inappropriate things at a football game.
Right.
We've seen people come on campus inappropriately and say things and do things. And we've never had something to point back to. Now we do.
Yeah.
That is not what the board considers to be perfect decorum. or good
Mm.
decorum or standard or what, that's not what, I think the board has always said we model behavior.
Right.
That is not how we have proper discourse. That is not how we disagree.
Yeah.
You are being disagreeable,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna need you to step off the campus until
Mm.
you're able to get yourself together. And then you can come back. So
Mm.
I like it. I
Mm.
like adding that.
If it's okay, I was gonna have, Rosa add that statement and have you two
Great.
look at it
Okay.
and see.
That'd be great.
What I wrote down, and see if we agree. Rosa, we also commit to holding WCC USD staff, students, and community to living these standards,
Perfect.
Standards of anti-racism.
standards of anti-racism.
Do we want to say, do we want to end that sentence with in our schools? Because,
We
I mean,
can.
you're right. I mean, and you're right too, like, we ultimately can't hold community accountable outside
Outside.
of our boundaries,
Mhm.
right? I mean, that is their life, that is their choice.
In our schools.
In our schools, we're
Yeah.
saying standard, hey, we're stepping into our campuses. This is the standards and the expectations that we
I
hold.
think that we should say, we also commit to holding WCC USD staff, students, and community to living these standards of anti-racism in our schools.
Got it.
I think
Okay.
that's good.
Right.
Or on our district property. I don't know how much we.
In our schools is better. It sounds better. Yeah, yeah.
And just for clarity, would you two like this on the agenda for tomorrow and go over agenda setting with you?
I
That'd
would,
be great.
yeah.
Okay,
I would love for this to come to the board on the
Yeah.
20th.
gotcha.
Clerk Gonzalez Lloyd,
Yeah.
would it come to the board as discussion or action?
Well, that's,
Does it have
I
to
think
come twice?
I think we can have the discussion tomorrow.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it has to, oh, you mean talk about where it's gonna show up?
Yeah,
tomorrow.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Anything else on the policy that we would like to add, change, edit?
Is this a statement or is this a policy? And what's the
Yeah,
difference?
that's a really good question. I mean, it technically is not a policy. It's really
Our
our
statement.
vision, our
Okay.
statement. Yeah,
I can add, you probably don't like this idea.
You better talk to a lawyer. aren't you?
Well, because this is Harold's expertise.
yeah.
Like he'll take something that we've said and convert it to a policy.
I think that might be
I
good.
think that's good.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that that's good.
I thought that'd be good.
Because I think
That way
that,
you can
yeah,
have that ready
yes.
for the board meeting. I'm not sure if it'll be ready tomorrow. We may
Yeah.
have a quick turnaround time.
Well, let's have a discussion on that specific issue tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then as long as we have it by Friday, we
Yeah.
should be okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, are we okay moving it as it is?
I
Then-
believe I am. My vote is yes,
Okay,
Yes, sir.
with the
Okay.
change.
Yes.
okay, I'm good too. All right, listen, we might get out early today. Um,
The revised.
wonderful. Okay. And then, okay, well, we can move to our next item,
Okay,
which is the handbook. Sorry. The pulling up, thank you, the governance handbook. Thank you. I know mine's missing something. The governance handbook. Oh, and I see Miss Hatcher and the yeah, if we could make her a panelist. There we go. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Took me a minute to get here. The original link I
Okay, I
had
can't hear.
didn't work. I
Do I need to
apologize.
unmute as well? No, I mean like, I can't hear her speaking. Like, do I also have to unmute my computer? No, she was speaking. Oh, okay. Miss Hatcher, would you mind speaking again?
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Hi,
Um,
sorry, the link I initially had wasn't working, so I apologize for arriving late.
Oh, no worries. I wonder if that's what happened to some of our other individuals that were trying to come in. Anyways, well, thank you for joining us. We have gone through a few items, and we're now moving to the governance handbook. And Ms. Hatcher, I'm gonna send you the agenda through the chat, just so that you have it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, awesome. So let's move to our next item, the governance handbook. So I will not ask Dr. Hurst to read through
Thank you, sir.
the 63 pages. And we have seen this before. It came to the board last year, and then we got some feedback from board members. Went back to the committee and then made edits according to that feedback. So this is the latest version coming from the committee, the handbook committee, which we haven't met in a few months, but we got this ready probably, I think, October, November. So I don't know, I guess, are there any questions on the most recent version of it?
I think just to bring everyone up
Yeah.
to date, we.
Oh, thank you.
We had met and we were ready to move forward, but then another trustee had some questions.
Mm,
And I think Jim and that trustee met
Mhm.
and they made some changes. And it was only a few different things. So
They
if
made
you
changes.
remember, we had put it on the board agenda.
Mhm.
And one of the things was like, something was highlighted and the highlight just needed to be removed. So that was an
Okay.
easy fix.
Okay.
But then there were some things like around the ethics policy that was in here that was then removed.
Oh,
And in talking with, at that time, President Dallas Hoy,
I added it
he
back
did
in.
not like that.
okay,
He-
okay,
He wanted that ethics policy back in there.
okay.
So there was, I think, a total of, how many changes?
2, 3, 4, 5.
5 changes.
How many,
Mine-
were there changes that were just cosmetic? So I heard highlighting is cosmetic, and then that was one. So what are
Can
the
you
other
go
4
over the-
changes?
All 5 of them, in page number 2.
Yes, so page 29 had an incomplete paragraph.
Let's get there first, give us a chance to get there. And Ms. Hatcher, I'm not sure, can you see this? Can you hear us?
I think she could hear us, but
Okay.
we're not sharing the document. So for Ms. Hatcher and for
The governance document?
yes, yeah, we're on
I
that.
can, I can see that, yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Demetrio shared that with me, Dr. Hurst, and so I was opening it up. You said
Okay.
page 29?
Yes,
Okay,
And they said there's an incomplete paragraph. Is that the last sentence?
it was incomplete and now it has been completed.
It's been fixed.
By whom?
It was by Jim.
Jim completed it,
Jim completed.
It was just in the same place.
a couple of words or something.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
The other one was clarification on posting on social media on page 43.
Page 43.
And what was that conversation? about?
To direct us to the sentence.
You know what was changed?
I reviewed them before, but I don't remember what they were.
About actual potential for action, maybe on the social media platforms. As it's no free the potential financial and environment and or create issues related to
I
it.
remember.
I remember this,
okay.
yes.
I think that the language was softened
Mhm.
quite a bit. It
From
like
what you guys have?
before the first draft had like board members will not post about
Okay,
this, that.
Okay,
I think we softened it because we got pushback from certain board members, so we're not continuing to use social media.
okay, okay.
Which, there's like really no clear guidance from CSBA or others about not doing it. So
So
this
the
was
language
like,
softened to caution. It's a caution.
yeah, it's a cautionary,
Okay.
yeah, it's a caution.
Then page 39, that's what we highlighted, the portion that was highlighted, that's all we needed to take off. Page 38 was obviously the mediator chosen, but they do change the.
We did, yeah. It was 38.
Page 38.
39 on the new.
Or 39.
The mediation,
The mediator will be chosen by mutual agreement of the parties from a list of chosen individuals by the superintendent.
okay,
Mhm.
okay,
The pushback was like that board members could also recommend. Like,
Yeah.
I just thought that the superintendent is supposed to be the neutral party.
yes,
Um,
so the question became, who recommends a mediator?
Yeah.
Is,
Mhm.
who can submit names of a mediator?
right,
And one board member said board members should be able to submit the names also,
Mhm.
and then another board member said that it should be the superintendent because he's already the neutral party in anything. And where we landed was superintendent,
mm-hmm.
okay,
And-
Last one.
And then the,
that was
The
taken
ethics
out.
committee.
yeah, so the following part, the escalation to board ethics committee, which, the other member of the handbook committee
Took that out,
wanted to take it off.
and you put it
I
back.
put it back on because this is the current norm according to our lawyers
Okay,
of like, if there's a complaint,
Okay.
that this is what we must follow,
Okay.
really. So to me, it makes sense to keep it
in the handbook,
into Dr. Hurst.
absolutely,
Yeah,
I agree.
that's it.
So next steps, Clerk Gonzalez Williams?
So next steps, it needs to go back to the board for action,
Okay.
since we already incorporated feedback.
Okay,
So we can send it to the agenda setting
Okay.
committee tomorrow, to put on the next agenda or a future agenda. But was there anything else that anyone wanted to look over? I see Miss Hatcher. Miss Hatcher, go ahead. You have your hand up.
Yeah, my question was, what is your fail-safe if you don't have two neutral individuals on your board
Mm.
for the board ethics committee? So it said the board ethics committee would be then comprised of two members not involved in the complaint. I'm just asking, I'm not trying to throw a monkey wrench into your document, but who determines who or what is neutral? You have to, there has to at least be the appearance of neutrality. So what is the fail-safe to the absence of a neutral position? Which I think has kind of been one of the places where the board finds itself currently. There is not the appearance of neutrality amongst the board. So I was just wondering.
That is a really great question, and when talking to the lawyers, unfortunately, because the kind of the bus stops with the board, there's literally no one else they can go to. Because there's no other decision makers, in the district legally. So it would most likely go to the president of the board, who, if they are involved, it would go to the clerk. If they're involved, then it's a great question. I mean, I have no idea what we would do or what other districts would
Mhm.
do.
I think we'd have to go to the lawyer,
But
if we're at that point.
yeah, but the
And then-
question is who makes the decisions? Like, I mean, legally it had to be the board president, I guess.
I think it would have to be, and then I think that it would be a question that if that happens, we would have to go to the only people that the board gets advice from, which is legal.
That's what I was gonna say.
Legal
Get advice
counsel.
from legal, so legal counsel would then have to
Mhm.
tell us what's the next step, through their research, through their law, whatever it is, and then we would have to, as a board, follow whatever that is. The hope is that we have neutral parties on the board. The other hope is that everyone in the board capacity does their job, which is to have that neutrality and only follow whatever's in policy
Yeah,
or et
yeah.
cetera. But I think
Yeah.
that the appearance is people's perception.
Yeah.
A 6 looks like a 9, depending on which side you're on, right?
I think the big difference is that the idea is that people who serve in the ethics committee from the board would be people not named in the complaint.
Right.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that's the difference, even though the perception is that there are allies on the board who
Right.
vote together or whatever, or we're divided or whatever that looks like,
Yeah.
which is, sometimes true. The idea about neutrality is neutrality when it comes to the complaint.
Right,
Mhm.
So if we're all named in the complaint, I mean, who knows what happens,
Right.
right? but the idea is whoever's left outside
Of the
of the
complaint.
complaint would be the ones serving in the ethics committee.
Absolutely. I think so. I think that's the best answer.
So, Ms. Hatcher, is not a great answer to your question, but I think that unfortunately we're gonna have to take it as it comes in this, depending on the specific situation.
Oh, no, I mean, I totally understand that. I don't think like our board is unique in the fact that folks are disgruntled. And I heard even around the appearance of things, we know optics drive, I mean, we find ourselves in the current situation, right? The optics of what's happening is really driving the narrative. So I'm good with the answer as long as I guess all parties involved have an understanding, okay, this is kind of how it would go. And this is how we would hope it would go. Hopefully it doesn't get to this other piece. I'm good. I just wanted to just pose the question.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, any additional thoughts, Dr. Hurst?
Yeah, I actually had a different question. I thought, Ms.
Yeah.
Hatcher was gonna ask, this question. So at the last board meeting, this was on the agenda. You saw a board member ask questions who was part of the process. And then
Mm.
asked the item to be removed when they were part of the process. So that we don't continue down that road, will it be, okay, we have discussion. We're gonna take a vote, and then based on that vote, we're gonna move forward. Is that how we're gonna?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
thank you.
Okay, well, sorry, I forgot to ask for public comment, but there's no one in attendance, so I'm gonna move us forward. Well, since there are no more changes or discussion, let's take a vote on moving forward. President Smith votes,
Smith votes yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Dr. Hurst?
Yes,
Wonderful. Okay, then we're gonna send it to the agenda setting committee for agendizing to a board meeting. Okay, we're gonna now move to, wow, we're doing great time. We should have just added more things. We're gonna now move to our last item for discussion, which is review of current policies on the waiting list. To clarify, these are policies that have been sent to either President Smith Folds, Dr. Hurst, or myself from board members, or even community members on policies they want us to review. So I added 15 policies. I try to make it explicit that if they were a brand new policy versus reviewing a current policy, and trying to make edits. So I'm gonna read them real quick. And then we're not gonna discuss them right now, like all of them, but I just wanted the community and committee members to just see kind of what is on our docket for discussion for this school year.
Okay.
And if there are more that we want to add, we can add more, right? But obviously this will take a while.
Yeah.
Number one, new policy on anti-racism statement for the Board of Education, which we did today. Review of WCCOSD School Board Handbook. New policy for paying student trustees and giving them high school credit. Number four, review of Board Policy 5127, graduation ceremonies and activities. Number five, new policy on period poverty. Number six, new policy on book review and book banning. Number seven, review of bullying policies. Number eight, review of harassment policies. Number nine, new policy on COLA received from California. Number 10, new policy for preservation of school-based art and other installations, which is actually the same as number 15.
okay,
So I forgot to email you. Number 11, new policy for cell phone use at schools. Number 12, review policy for charter co-locations. Number 13, review curriculum adoption review process. Number 14, review and update of the CBOC district policy. And then number 15, review and update of mural policy, which is the same as number 10. We just had different names.
Yes.
So those are really our work moving forward. So if there are people in the community who watch this later, or Ms. Hatcher, President Smith Folds, Dr. Hurst, there are more policies we want to add, please send them to me and we'll just add them to the list. Our next meeting, we're gonna try to tackle number 3, number 4, and hopefully we can review number 5, but we'll see how lengthy each of one of them are. I would like, Ms. Neely Johnson to attend the next meeting. And then the person in charge of our graduation committee.
Okay, so that's a few people, so that's, Summer, Tashaka, Julio Franco
Okay,
as well.
okay, perfect.
Mhm.
Can I
Um,
put your 3, 4, and 5?
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, because mine is a little different.
Oh, shoot,
So
okay.
3 is high school credit. 4 is graduation. 5 is period policy.
Oh, okay, okay, I don't know, depending on which agenda everyone's looking at. Yeah, the one online is wrong. I don't know why mine's different.
I think because
Um,
they added these 2
Gotcha,
here and
okay.
here they're separate.
No,
Oh, I
You see
see,
what
I
I
see,
mean?
I see,
They're
I see.
separate
Okay,
and
okay.
they're here.
Then number 1, number 2, and maybe number 3,
Mhm.
we will look at. We'll go to Dr. Hurst and then I have a question for President.
So, a question around participation, so I got Ms. Neely Johnson as well. But I wanted to also ask if you wanted any secondary principals, high school principals, because I know it was, De Leon that actually approached me about, this policy around here, around the high school credit.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, then I would love if you joined us. Yeah. So what we're going to be doing is that I'm gonna be asking you
Mhm.
to bring us a draft policy on that.
And that was the
So
discussion.
most likely, I don't know who you're gonna assign it to, but I
Mhm.
figured maybe you'd be assigning it to Mr. De Leon and Miss Neely
Mhm.
Johnson if they're,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah,
so,
I'll look at their areas and then work with either, it's probably gonna be Miss Neely Johnson because she has the bulk of everything.
that's what I
I
figured.
think that should be CBO
then she'll
Moses
assign
for payment. Where would
Yeah.
it come from?
Well, I think that if Ms. Neely Johnson, when they draft the policy, talks to CBO Moses, I don't think that necessarily Miss CBO.
Has to be here.
Yeah, has to be here.
Okay.
Because we're talking about a few $100s a month, right?
Right.
We're following really, my hope is we're gonna follow the draft from the San Diego policy.
Okay.
And can you
Um,
highlight the ones that we're gonna be speaking?
Oh, yeah,
about?
here is number 1, number 2, and number 3. Yeah, but number 3, so policy on period poverty, that was from you,
Yeah.
President Smith. So is that something you would like to draft and talk about, or?
I'm not even sure if it needs to be a policy or if it's just a review of what we already do, or
Mhm.
just, so I'm looking for information around period poverty in the district.
Right.
So if we have
Mhm.
the sanitary napkin machines in the bathroom, how are they stocked?
Oh,
How do we?
I always think of the wrong period
Yeah,
poverty.
yeah.
Okay, got it, got it.
So administration, right?
Mhm.
So when we're talking about having them in the 4th grade, because that's typically where it starts, then how are we ensuring that they're stocked properly, that we
Mhm.
have education around our staff, our male and female staff around dealing with students that have issues with periods? And I also want to look at, there are some girls who have cramps so bad they can't come to school. Their cramps are so bad that they are physically incapable of coming to school. What does that look like? Do they get excused, unexcused? How do we track that? Like, what are we doing? Then I would like to look at all things. So I'm looking at all things around period. So when we talk about our periods, is it fair that girls get 5 minutes menstruating, girls who are menstruating, they're on the same time to get from class as everyone else, because it takes longer if you have to take care of your personal hygiene. So are we putting up barriers because we have time limits between classes? What does it look like when girls who don't have access to pads or tampons don't go to school? Because now pads are $10 and $12 for a pack of 24. You go through a lot of pads when you're on your period. And if you're in a household with multiple girls, you go through a lot of pads when you're on your period, or a lot of tampons. I would like to have some information about if they're stocked in our schools, because I go into schools and I look and I turn the little thing that's supposed to be for free and there's nothing in there.
Mhm.
Majority of the schools I go to, there's nothing in the bathrooms. How are we ensuring, what policy do we have in place that says this is part of a healthy educational environment? So what does the healthiest educational environment for menstruating girls look like?
Mhm.
And what do we have around our schools that ensure that to happen? So that's more what I'm looking like.
Mm.
I'm not sure if it's a policy. I don't know. but I'm looking at how do we create the healthiest environment? So that would be,
Well, some of it might be a
Mhm.
policy.
Okay.
So I guess it's more of research.
That's what I was
Okay.
gonna say. What I typically do is I will check in with, legal,
okay,
and then Harold, who I usually go to, he'll check around other districts
okay,
to see what they have in place.
okay.
But he is pretty good at even
Mhm.
crafting.
Policy around that?
based
Okay.
on needs what our
Mhm.
desire is.
Okay,
He may wanna talk with you.
Okay.
To kind of get an idea, and you just share exactly what you just
Yeah,
shared.
I'm okay with that. I'm
Okay.
okay with having a conversation with Harold, a quick one, they charge by
Yeah.
the hour.
Yeah.
A quick conversation with Harold, or putting it
pretty
in
good.
writing, or I could put it in writing to Harold, whatever.
I also think though that maybe we should, Dr. Harris, you should connect with Mr. Freeze.
Yeah.
Because I do
Yes.
think that there's a policy
Right.
out there
Okay.
around what we provide for
Mhm.
students for free in our
Mhm.
facilities. So that should be part of it. And I remember when it first was enacted into law where we had to provide
Mhm.
free,
Sanitary napkins and
thank
all
you,
of that stuff.
thank you, all that stuff
Yeah.
to students at a certain age
Mhm.
that I remember contacting the previous Mr. Freeze.
Mhm.
I already forgot her name.
Mhm.
Gosh, Lisa,
Mhm.
whatever. And she told me that we had a policy and we actually had already gotten ahead of the enactment of the law. So we just have to look.
Okay.
But I think that's a great idea. Well, I think that's plenty
Mhm.
for our next meeting. Thatcher, I see your hand. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I feel like I'm just like a spoiler, always raising my hand. It's getting harder and harder for me to hear because of the conference that's going on. What I am wondering is if I could maybe reach out like to you or Trustee Smith Folds and you could update me, just tell me what happened. Would that be appropriate
Yeah,
when I
absolutely.
get back? And that way in going into the next meeting, I won't be raising my hand going, what was that? What was that? If I could do that, because it's getting a little hectic around here.
That would be great. Absolutely. Yeah.
Harder to find a quiet spot.
Yeah, you're welcome to reach out to any of us. Happy to.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much. Look, have a good rest of the meeting. Looks like it's going along at a nice clip. So I'll keep my fingers crossed that everything ends on time. And yes, I will reach out to you in the next few days.
Wonderful. Have a great conference. Thank you for joining us.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye. Okay, everyone. Well, I think that then at the next meeting, we will do the review of the student trustee pay and credit review, which will be a new policy,
Mhm.
review of current policy, graduation ceremonies and activities. And then discussion around a potential new
Mhm.
policy on, do we have to call it period poverty? I think it's very
You
confusing.
can call it menstruation.
Okay.
I mean, like, that's just a.
Yeah,
the
well,
long-
maybe Harold has like ideas of other, because I think, okay,
You wanna
the
call it
reason why I say, it's
flow?
not
There's
because
a lot of things
it's
that we
not
can
because
call
I'm
it.
against the word period, it's because I think the first thing people think of is like poverty, like generational poverty. That's literally what I thought of. What is
We
around
call it an administrating like not administrative, but like administrating, like
menstruating, yes, yes,
administrating.
okay,
We can call it
okay.
administrating. I mean, again, listen. There's a lot of things we used to call it in Alabama, pardon the Red Sea, and lots of things. I think we need to keep it as, the way we can in health class.
Okay, whatever it's called in health class, we'll
Administration,
do
I think
that,
it's
okay,
good.
okay,
That would be the way
okay.
to go.
That sounds good.
No, you see me like, I'm looking down.
Dr. Johnson and son were sweating. She's like,
Yeah.
oh.
Okay, everyone, well, we do have quite a few policies. I'm sure we're gonna get more in the next few
Yeah,
months,
yeah.
which is fine. I think that because this committee hasn't been, in existence for a few years, we have a lot of catching up to do.
Can I talk about something just real quick? I would love something around our flags. I know we have
Oh, yeah,
a
yeah.
policy around flags, but I would love something
Yes,
around
that's what you meant.
keeping the flags up longer, not having to stay within a frame of a month, right? Like, I would love to see the LGBTQIA plus trans flag up all the time. Like, I just think it's when we can get past the calendar
Mhm.
and get moved to this is the culture. I would love to see the Pan-African flag up all the time. I would love to see, I'm such a hoarder, I would love the whole flagpole, like, you know what I mean? Because
I
it
think I
gives us,
sent you an email about that.
yeah,
one time.
you know what I mean? To give us a sense of, or have our students design a flag that's for WCCUSD that
Yeah,
encompasses
that's what I would love to see.
everything. And
Yeah.
that flag is all over our district, that encompasses who we are and what we stand for. I think one of the ways that we see anti-racism in action is through some of the symbols and the symbolic part of it. And how cool would it be to have a student design a flag that's used all over the district, that we change every 3 years or
Mhm.
something, so more students will have the opportunity. I'm complete.
So policy on flag flying, which I
Mhm.
think we have one already, of flag flying in schools, yeah, love that. Yeah, that'll be our number
Yeah,
15,
yeah.
perfect. Anything
Yeah,
else
can-
that we've missed? Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna ask, so I will be getting with Harold and with Sonia on these, and can I get back with you to let you know how long it'll take him?
Yeah.
As far as our next meeting?
Let's do that,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
We do have to schedule, our next meeting,
okay,
but, and I was gonna hopefully do it now,
okay.
but since we don't have our advisory folks here, I think that we should just do it offline.
Okay,
Maybe we can do a doodle,
okay.
with everybody and then we can go from there. But we're only gonna be meeting once a month, so the next meeting won't take place until April. So we have a little bit of time.
I think this is great.
Awesome.
This is really good.
Okay, well, gosh, we did it in 45 minutes. So our next meeting, we'll set the date. And I will adjourn us at 4:47.
Time to go to Target.
Wonderful. Thank you everyone for
Thank you.
watching. See you at the next one.